That will do. Boom. All right, so we had talked about that in the stuff. Did we talk about the social hierarchy, the different groups, the
Oh,
peninsulares, etc.?
I don't think so. Didn't we? Yeah.
All right. For those of you who need that as a reminder, we have a social hierarchy developed. At the very tippy top, we have a class section kind of standing directly in the way on it. We'll do it down here. We have, oh gosh, I can't write like that. Yeah, no. Sorry about that. Noises. My gosh, that's terrible. I'll adjust that later. Wait a second. Here we go. Oh dear. Stop it! Stop taking pictures of stuff. What is going on? My gosh. I'm pretty sure my computer just froze. Oh heavens.
I think it hates you today.
That's alright. The feeling is mutual. Oh snap. Well, I don't know if we lost our viewers at home, but it doesn't look very pleasing. Hello, welcome. There we go. All right. So basically, we have at the top of the Europeans. Okay. This is generally called peninsulares because of the Spanish Peninsula, the Iberian Peninsula. So we're referring to those who are from Spain. Beneath them are those who are ethnically European. These are the folks who are often the kiddos of the peninsulares, but weren't actually born in Spain. So they're seen as a difference there. And they're called Creoles. Underneath them are the kind of two mixes of European and natives and European and Africans. That would be mestizos for natives and mulattoes for the Africans. And below them you have the straight-blooded African Americans and Native Americans. So a hierarchy is basically where you have certain rights and privileges based upon which class you're born into, so to speak. So that's the situation that we find emerging in this area of the world. In addition, we have cultural elements that are unique, such as in forms of music and art, and even design. Like if you go and look at buildings that are designed in Latin America, they tend to be designed slightly differently, at least at this period. So the architecture is actually quite amazing, awesome stuff. Anyways, that's kind of waxing away. So we're going to see the same thing sort of happen in Brazil, only in Brazil there's no gold. Again, if you look at the geography of South America, the western portion has the Andes, all this tectonic activity which generates the minerals that we're going to want to send back to the mother country, so to speak. In the east, where we have Brazil, not so much. The only thing they have going for them naturally that grows there is indigo, which is what, by the way? It's a dye. Good. Which is going to be utilized for the purposes of making cloth. So that's going to get some big money, but the problem is that it's going to die out. So instead we're going to turn to cash crops, specifically the growth of what plants? What good is going to be the big money maker for Brazil? Yep. Absolutely. Which is highly labor intensive. So we have a significant amount of slaves coming to this area to grow the sugarcane we're going to need. And this is going to result in this ethnic mix we have in Brazil of African, Native, and European, which is, again, unique to Latin America. So, as we said, sugar and dye plantations, there you go. And then the wealth that's going to be generated by this is going to attract other European nations. So they are going to, in turn, try to get in on this wealth. And they're going to send in their navies. Now, here's the thing. We can fight war in a number of different ways. There's the direct way where we're going to have our soldiers fight their soldiers, and whoever wins takes the battlefield, and that's our territory now. We can also, though, attack around the army. You see, one of the things we have to understand is that all armies are made up of people, and people have certain needs, everything from food to clothing to creature comforts, things like toilet paper, you know? And the simple fact is, if we deny that to our enemies, you know, if we can go steal it or burn it or something like that, that's going to put them in a bad place. Their soldiers won't have enough food. They'll start starving. Their soldiers won't have their creature comforts. Think about this. What if we steal all the soap? Is that going to kill anybody, like not bathing, they're going to die? Probably not. But they're going to be pretty miserable, aren't they? So we can use that to an advantage. So what you see happening is raiders being hired by the governments of Europe to go attack Spanish and Portuguese shipping. The other thing we have to understand is that there was so much money coming out of the Spanish gold mines and silver mines that we're literally loading up huge lumbering ships called galleons to the brim with this stuff, and we're sending whole convoys of it together that's going to be surrounded by military ships. And what happens is, as they're going from place to place, settling these outposts, they have to stop. So this is a great opportunity for us to come in and act like bank robbers and steal everything. So this, what I'm getting to, is what a pirate does, what a privateer does. They basically do the same thing, and that is they steal stuff. They steal stuff on the high seas. The difference, though, is a privateer is actually able to do so legally because they are hired by a government and act as part of their military. They get what's called the letter of the mark, which is a document stating that they are doing these actions in an act of war. They are as a soldier with this rank. Basically, that's what allows them to do it. Pirates, on the other hand, are sort of freelance. They do it for their own enrichment. So what's going to happen is if you are a privateer and you get caught by the enemy troops, you're going to use that piece of paper and say, nope, I'm a soldier, and that means they have to treat you with a certain level of dignity. Pirates, they just hang. So privateers, pirates, there is a difference. The types of targets they would engage, the types of ships they had, the types of weaponry and what have you. There are going to be subtle differences, but they're also very similar. Yeah? Yeah, sorry. So basically, we're going to have a lot of similarities between these two. So what's going to happen is wars are going to break out in the Caribbean over control of the various islands like St. Kitts and Maracaibo and the brain just fell apart. Port Royal, things like that. So all of these, we start to see control of the Spanish start to wane a little bit as these other European powers sets in. Now, in North America, we're going to have other things going as well. Settlers are coming in there, and the thing is, you've got all these Native Americans there, and in addition, you've got all these different European powers settling there. There's going to be different relationships with all of them. For instance, the Spanish want to convert folks. Okay, so they're in Florida and these other southern states. The French are really interested in the fur trade. Fur is even today a symbol of wealth. I think about folks with fur coats and things like that. It's a way of showing off your worth. Not as much today as it used to be, as a matter of fact. And the best fur was in North America. Things like otter and beaver and stuff like that could get a huge price back in Europe. So they wanted to get this, but the natives were much better at getting it than they were. So they just traded them and sometimes accompanied them on these fur traffics. So they were kind of like, working together in a lot of ways. Whereas the English were kind of standoffish, the Dutch the same way, and didn't have as good a relationships in a lot of cases. Some tribes they did, some tribes they didn't, but that's kind of the general overview of it. So as North American colonies begin to expand, we're going to have competition between these folks. Interestingly enough, as well, the thing you have to understand, like, let's say you're moving out to one of these colonies, yeah? Well, who's going to enforce the law? What is the law? I mean, you're out in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's no police, there's no firefighters, none of that. I mean, it's kind of whatever you guys say go. And this kind of led to some fighting and some disagreement. So basically, the first English settlers came up with the first law of the Mayflower Compact to try to keep folks from fighting against each other, and was sort of the first law. And actually, it's going to have a lot of bases in American law because it protects rights of property, explains like what you can and can't do, how you set up borders, and things like that. So it kind of is important as a first legal document. And as I said, they're going to compete with other Europeans. And eventually, England wins most of the territories. Now, please understand, I'm skipping over a whole smattering of wars, partially because we are in America, and the one that kind of ends it all is kind of important to us. But also because we just don't have time to go over all these different details. But suffice it to say, there are several wars that are fought. The one that kind of ends them all between England and France is what we call the French and Indian War. Do you guys know what other places call it? What they call it, say, in England? Yes, ma'am.
7 years.
It's a 7 years war, absolutely. The reason it's a little confusing is who is fighting in the 7 years war? Who fights that war? It's not the French and the Indians. That's the problem we often run into. It's the French and the Indians fighting against the English. Remember, the French and the Indians kind of get along decently. So the French end up getting help from the natives against the English, and they lose anyways. Partially, the thing we have to understand is calling it the 7 Years' War is actually a little bit more accurate from the standpoint of a global scale. We're concerned with the F&I War because it's happening in North America, but the 7-Year War is happening all over the world, and all the various colonies, the East India companies are involved. I mean, it's a huge world war. We're just often concerned about our aspect of it. So what happens? Well, first of all, the English win. So a lot of the French territories, as in all of them except for like one small part of Canada, and even that really is still part of England. It's weird. But anyways, goes to England. So this means that England now controls all the territory of the European colonies, except for the Spanish ones, in North America. So what's going to happen is there's a huge amount of debt this war builds up. They need to pay it back. So there's two schools of thought to this. First of all, is who's benefiting the most from all this land? Well, the colonists. So this means they should pay for the war. So we're going to tax the goods that makes them the most money, and thus pay ourselves back. The other school of thought, most of the colonists say, no, that's not fair. We can't even vote on this. So what we need to do is spread it around. I mean, this is for the glory of the British Empire. I mean, come on, we weren't only fighting in the colonies, we were fighting over in India, all these places. That's not fair. But they don't have a voice in the parliament, so it doesn't do anything. So this basically goes, now we're going to plan A, you guys have to pay, and that really makes the colonists pretty angry because there's this whole no taxation without representation thing that goes around, but there's other problems as well. As we've already established, the colonies had already been ruling themselves for the most part, the use of governors, things like that. So this was sort of seen as a foreign power acting against the better will of the people. Furthermore, there's going to be other differences that evolve. That's kind of getting in American history, and we're going to skirt around that. So suffice it to say, the Treaty of Paris in 1763 kind of leads up to the American Revolution. And that's kind of neat how they're tied together. But in any case, I digress. We good on this? Yes? Maybe understand things? Any questions? Yes? No? Maybe so. Fantastic. So, back over here to Pirates and Privateers. Two guys you'll need to know, Sir Francis Drake and Henry Morgan. That's Captain Morgan, for those of you guys know that is. And both these guys are going to be privateers. The reading I just handed out to you a second ago is actually about Sir Francis Drake and his voyages, and it's pretty interesting. It's a neat story. It's about 6 pages. I do apologize about the stupidity of how it's stapled together. I for some reason, I just can't figure out how to work a stapler. And it's kind of like the front page flips down, and now it's the next pages, and then it's this page. But you'll figure it out. It's just a little silly. I'm sorry. But here's the deal. Let's say we're going to be privateers. Okay? Now, here's what you're signing up for. We're going to be gone for at least 2 years. Okay? So say goodbye to everybody you know at home for 2 years. Might be 3, might be 4, we don't know. Because we are going to go and steal all kinds of stuff from the enemy of our nation. So it's not really stealing, it's more like unconventional warfare. In return for your time, your fighting, your sailing, you are going to get a cut of whatever it is we end up taking. So this could be $5, it could be $1 million. We don't know. But this is the exciting potential of it. You get to go see the world for 2 years. You get to go get tons of money, possibly. You get to go fight for your country. This is like everybody wants to do this. Yes, this is great. So what do we need to do? What do we need on our ship in order to do this? Ideas. What do we want? Obviously, yes, we want food. That's good. I like to eat. Any other ideas? Water would be good. Weapons, sure. What else? Yeah.
Navigator?
That would be handy, knowing where we're going. Specifically, we need navigation tools, things like backstaffs. We don't have sextants quite yet, but I believe they have the quadrant at this point. I could be wrong on that. But we definitely have backstaffs, we definitely have astrolabes, things like that. So we're going to be able to get around, things like that. Yes, yes, yes. We need replacement sails, we need replacement ropes, we need nails, we need hammers. We know what kinds of tools to keep our boat afloat. What kind of boat do we want, by the way? What kind of ship do we want? Yeah.
Big one with ducks painted on it.
Why ducks?
I don't know.
It just seemed appropriate. Fair enough. Let's talk about ship size for half a jiff. Let's talk pirate ships. All right, so most of you guys have probably seen Pirates of the Caribbean, yes? All right, so this is probably a ship you guys are intimately familiar with, the Black Pearl, all right? Let's look at this bad boy. Is she big?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, she's kind of fat, I mean, like, that's kind of rude, I guess. But anyways, she's got 3 masts. 1, 2, 3. And we've got the sails, so that's good. We can actually move, things like that. Top speed, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 knots, 8 knots, maybe, if we're lucky. Good question. It's the thing you tie in a rope. Chow. No, it actually translates to nautical miles per hour, which is a little bit more than mile per hour. Something in the neighborhood of 9.5 miles per hour. Is that good? Is that fast? Well, keep in mind, galleons are going somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 or 6. So we can catch up to them, but they can give us a little run for our money if they got a good head start. In fact, this makes a terrible pirate ship. Now, let me show you another ship that's kind of similar in design.
Oops. The USS Constitution. Old Ironsides. Kind of similar, yes? That's what she looks like today.
Yes, she's still floating. Oh my goodness. This is the oldest ship still floating, guys. It's over 200 years old.
I'm scared to ride on it.
I would love to ride it. It'd be awesome. But I digress. So, Old Ironsides, yes. This is a warship. This is what fought against the British. Good for fighting in the Navy, but there's some slight problems with this design. First of all, its gun decks. It's really tall. That's good for fighting in a war because it needs more cannon. Here's the problem. Do we care about having a whole lot of cannon if we're just going to steal everything? What good does it do us if it ends up at the bottom of the ocean? Not so much. So that's not really a good thing. In fact, what we're more interested in is having a lot of dudes, a lot of people, a lot of pirates. It's not uncommon for pirate ships to outnumber their target by 4 or 5 to 1. The other thing you have to understand, as pirates, we are going to be attacking merchants. These are dudes who sell things, not soldiers. So whenever we attack them, we've got 120 crazed maniacs armed to the teeth with swords and knives and guns and bombs and all kinds of stuff, and they're yarding at you with loud boisterousness. And you're just like, I don't want any of that. They will eat me. They get close enough to take your ship. You just surrender. Help yourself. I'll help you carry the nonsense. Because you don't own any of it. Why would you die defending something that does you no good? It's all insured. They'll get it back anyways. And pirates, they might throw you overboard. They might eat your brains. They might have a cup of tea with you. You don't really know what they're going to do. At least this is what the stories say. Truth is, both privateers and pirates were interested in getting the stuff and getting out. Okay? They weren't interested in the cruelty. At least most of them weren't. Some were, but they were kind of creepy people. Our best option for a good privateering ship, if we're going to be attacking merchants, like if we're going to be attacking something that really is heavily defended, yeah, we might want a warship. But the type of ship we would really want to be attacking, like shipping and things like that, is a Bermuda sloop, things like that. So this is what the design for that, and you can kind of see a couple different pictures of. First of all, let's look at what it looks like out of the water. Again, you got this kind of really interesting sail design. It's almost like a mohawk on the ship, you know. And what this does, it allows us to get angled into the wind really, really well. We're kind of really dug in on the water line. If you look at it actually in the water, it's actually not the Bermuda sloop, but it's kind of closest in design. Look how low it is. That's actually not even really properly correct. Another image in here is better. That means speed. Greasy, fast speed that's going to get us where we want to go. So we can get right up on people and get away in case, like let's say we're going up to somebody and say, oh, there's a naval craft! Run away, run away, run away! We can do that. Funny thing is, you'd be like, well, couldn't you tell the difference between a naval ship and like a merchant? You'd think. But recently, as in a year and a half ago, I remember reading in the news there was a Somali pirate ship that attacked what they thought was a merchant, like, you know, big thing. It was a French military ship. It's like, blast you out of the water. Oops! So that mistake could be made. So we need to get away if that's possible. Maybe have 4 or 6 cannons. Because again, we don't want to sink in a ship. We want to get our cannons to kill the crew. You know, in case we have to take the ship, we want to just take them out so we can get up on board the ship, climb the decks, and then we have a foothold so we can kind of attack the ship, or if we get on board, they might just surrender. So what we do is instead of loading cannonballs, we take grape shot, which is basically musket balls, stuff like that big. We just load, so basically make like a giant shotgun. Because that's going to do a crap load of damage to the enemy troops. If we were fighting a naval engagement, maybe we have cannonballs. We might have like chain shot, which is going to spread out this chain. We might send out bar shot, which can knock down mass. We do all kinds of crazy shenanigans that give us an advantage in combat. But for now, we're just interested in taking stuff, okay? So this is what they're going to be doing. Now, the other thing we have to understand is we have other advantages that we can scare people with. You know, the fact that we're all well-trained soldiers, these guys are merchants, the fact that there's these stories of horror and doom and just better surrender, it'll go better for you, things like that. So how do we signal to them that we mean business? How do we let them know that we are not going to take no for an answer, you better pull over or else we're going to do bad things to you? Yep.
Draw, make a flag with scary stuff on it.
Exactly.
The pirate flag. Think about it. What is the imagery on a pirate flag? Yeah, what do we use skull and crossbones on, like bottles for? Yeah, things that will kill you. That's just pirates. Oops. Flag. There we go. So things like that, they show basically what's going to happen to you. Some different pirate. These are all interesting. This was a real pirate flag that was of Calico Jack Rockham. Some of them have, okay, someone's using it as a towel. Some of them involve hourglasses showing that your time is running out, things. It was meant to cause fear. The Navy did the same thing, by the way. They had what's called the red flag, which is no quarters drawn. They flew that sucker. They were saying, yeah, we're just going to kill you all. That was when you knew they meant business. Because they could send flags, they stop, you know, don't run, things like that. But this is the red flag. It's like, oh crap. So, psychological war is going to be incredibly effective in the age of the sail. So, what are we going to be attacking? Well, it depends if you're a pirate or privateer. Privateers are doing economic warfare. So they're interested in taking things that the other nations will be using to enrich themselves. So basically gold, you know, gold, jewels, that sort of thing. Pirates, not so much. Pirates are freelancers.
Many of these guys are former privateers. Once the war's end, these privateers are basically without a job. So some of us keep doing what they were doing. Well, now it's illegal because they don't have the letter of the mark. So what they're going to be doing is seeking mostly stuff that'll keep them living. So food, water, sails, basically what we consider household goods. Blackbeard, one of the most feared pirates ever to have lived, held up an entire town for medicine. So, you know, that's kind of what they're going for. I mean, yeah, if they got told, that'd be great, because they're going to spend it immediately. And some towns, like Port Royal, grew up because there were so many privateers that would come in to spend everything they had on having a good time, if you know what I mean. Basically, food, drinking, and ladies. And they would spend all this money, and that was good for the economy. But otherwise, most of it's going to be household goods. Privateers, on the other hand, these guys are going to be doing different things, and they also treat people differently. Like pirates, again, they know if they're caught, they're dead. So they tend to be rather no-nonsense. It's like if you do not cooperate, those cut you down. Privateers, on the other hand, a little bit more civil, although that's also debatable. Henry Morgan, when he takes the town of Portobello, he said, like, you know, we were all great. Yeah, we took them. We might have knocked them around a little bit, but otherwise we were perfect gentlemen. And then the townspeople were saying, no, he was raping, murdering, pillaging, all this sort of stuff. He was basically a pirate. Which was which? Who knows? It's lost to history in a lot of ways. But keep in mind, these were kind of rough people, so and probably something's true. But anyways, again, the reason that you have so many pirates in the Caribbean, you know, and basically there are pirates everywhere, but the thing we focused on with the Caribbean was because it was almost a perfect storm for piracy. First of all, you have all this money there, merchants and the treasure ships and all this stuff. Second of all, very little government activity there. The government was busy fighting their own wars, things like that. There's just too much space. The Caribbean's huge. There's only about one naval ship for every 500 sea miles. So we're talking, they just couldn't be everywhere at once. There are stories of pirates taking a ship and just looting it for like 3 days because there's absolutely no fear of another ship running up and this is dumb luck. So this was something that, you know, lent itself to lawlessness. And then thirdly, you had these wars where they were using privateers, and then once the wars end, well, you're out of job. Well, you got to make a living somehow. Let's just keep stealing stuff. Some would keep stealing, just like they always did, say, no, I'm actually a privateer. Well, there's not a war, it's not legal, things like that. And so there's that whole thing. And then there's somebody that says, screw it, I'm robbing everybody blind. So you have all this kind of different types of things going on. But eventually, the thing that kills the golden age of piracy is the fact that the government becomes much more serious in cracking down on them. There's more warships, and then they offer amnesty. Quite frankly, they say, how about you say you're sorry, and then it's okay. You know, we'll forgive you, and you can go back to the life of doing whatever you want. And that kind of made people who were robbed really mad, but it also stopped pirates because they're like, well, I'm getting out while they're getting this good. So all this kind of was part of the same thing. Does that kind of make sense? All right, cool beans. Okay, why don't you guys start reading that article on Sir Francis Drake. If the bell rings before we finish it, that's fine. If we don't finish it before the bell rings, just finish it for homework. We'll talk about it tomorrow on National Talk Like a Pirate Day. Until then, let's sign off from here, and we'll talk to you later.